All right. Welcome, everyone. Today we are talking with Bill Wetterman, and I'm very excited about this conversation today. Bill has a lot of experience in not just writing, but also in speaking on the topic of writing. So we have much to pick brains or Bill's brains Bill. We have much to pick Bill's brain about today, and I'm very excited. He and I have already been chit-chatting a little bit, and I'm already going, oh, this all needs to be recorded already, and I didn't have the recording going. So I'm excited to jump into information that I know is going to be beneficial for all of you and for myself. So that's one of the things about being a writer, is that you're always learning. Always learning, we're always crafting, we're always adding to our skill set. Stephen King calls it your toolbox. And I absolutely love that. So I'm excited to talk with Bill today. So before we do get started talking, I want to do the share the screen. I'm going to take you to the internet where we can look at, here's Bill's Amazon author page. And so I wanted you to see just the vast array of novels here on this page. I'm interested in several of these. I just got a copy of Jim Lafter's Apostle Murders. I'm excited to start reading that. So now I'm going to have to dig in here, Bill, and pick one of these to get started reading. But they all look fantastic. So you're a thriller writer.
Yes, I write dark thrillers, really.
Nice.
Many of them are difficult to organize because all of the action and tension in dark thrillers give you a sense of panic throughout the novel.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all of my thrillers are panic driven.
Wonderful. Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'll have to read through all the descriptions and pick one. Do I see the red one that says Christianity? I can't. Faces the 21st century. Is that nonfiction or is that fiction?
That's a nonfiction.
Okay.
That's a nonfiction, and in fact, that book, most of the time it's inexpensive. Most of the time, I just give it away for free.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to several political groups about it. Met a number of people in the process, and it's all part of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we do in writing is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
From the very beginning, you have to think about how you influence individuals. The reason that I write is to influence. We live in a world that is changed by writing.
Right.
Look at all the things that have developed. People look into the future. You read some of Tom Clancy's books and others, and what you'll find is what they've written
right
comes to pass.
Right.
And so that's the reason that I write.
Oh, that's wonderful. I absolutely love that. To make a difference, to be an influence. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and we will, we're going to flip over to Bill's actual website. So here you can find information about Bill and his blog, Writing on the Wild Side blog, and information about him as far as being a novelist, a speaker, and an educator. So that's a wonderful resource for all of you if you want to dig in and find out some more information about Bill and ways to contact him. And here we have, I was reading down through here, this is the Wild Side Novels site, where you can also read about the different books, find out what's going on in the industry. Lots of information here. And as I was reading down through this information here on the Yellowstone book, I found this section that got me very excited that I just highlighted. So you guys, Bill does speaking, he does educating in these areas. So writing dynamic thrillers, character development, researching and outlining your novel, self-publishing, the pros and the cons, and the steps to becoming a published author. These are things that he already is educating others, other writers in these areas. And I'm super excited to get to even just tap into that information that's in his head today for you all regarding those topics. And here I found on the Tulsa Jazz site an interview or an article about Bill. And I thought that was nice, listing out the different awards that you've received. That was super wonderful. And again, there are those things that you speak on, some appearances that you've had. How exciting was that to be on Channel 8? Good Morning Tulsa.
It was fun.
I bet.
Mike Collier interviewed me, and we're still good friends now. We just keep emailing back and forth.
That's fantastic. How very exciting. I got to be on a radio program in St. Louis one time, and that was super interesting to get to talk about your work and writing and why you do that for a broad audience. I found it to be a little intimidating, but as the interview went on, I got really super into it, and it was just very exciting. So
yeah,
you forget that you're being interviewed once you start talking about writing, and it just becomes a conversation. And so that is why I'm calling these interviews that we're doing for my class, I'm calling them conversations. Because once we do really start talking about writing, that the conversation takes over, and it just naturally happens because we love what we do. So,
absolutely.
yes. So Bill, we're back now. We're not looking at the internet. So let's talk. Let's talk about, you said you write to influence people. So let's expand on that a little bit more. Why do you write?
Well, there's so many things happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
If you pick up a newspaper, you could write a story
every
day.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that I feel strongly about, I will jump on it, and then I will project it into the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't start out that way. Let me give you some background here.
Okay.
I published a poem in college, and loved to write. I was a terrible writer, actually. I had an English and history degree, and I got my poem published because I knew the editor of the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So that was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that coming out of college, I was getting married, I was going to raise a family. I couldn't make a living. Right. So I went into the business world. And yeah, I did some writing. I wrote technical manuals, business kinds of things. It wasn't really my key, but just like Rick's Griffith said to you, I started as I was getting ready to retire. Now, you have to understand, I'm 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very young 80
very
years
young,
old.
very young 80 years old. Yes.
But as I was getting near retirement, my wife and I, and she writes also, and we were watching programs, and I kept saying, "Oh, gee, I already know the ending. Yeah, I could do better than that."
Right.
Yeah. So I wrote a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I picked up a telephone and I called a New York agent. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I said, and I happened to get him because I worked late. I called him. It was 7:00 in New York. He picked up the phone.
Oh, wow.
I said, "I have a novel. I think it's great, and I would like to send it to you."
Uh-huh.
And he said, "Who are you?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, okay,
Mm-hmm.
send me 50 pages."
Mm-hmm.
and I'll get around to it.
Right.
So I sent him 50 pages. He sent me the next Monday, that was on a Friday, the next Monday, he calls me back. Said, I read your stuff. Said, you got a wry sense of humor. I really love it. But I'm going to tell you something. You need to learn the craft.
Huh.
You need to learn the craft of writing. And he gave me some suggestions. He said, you need to get into a writer's group.
Hmm.
You need to go to conferences. You need to meet people. And you need to learn the craft with intensive studies. So I did.
Hmm.
I eventually tore up that novel that I wrote. Just want you to know. I used characters in other little pieces, but you will not find it.
Wait.
That's all right.
Yes, it is.
I got a hold of someone by the name of Cecil Murphy. Cecil Murphy is a ghostwriter.
Mhm.
He wrote for Ben Carson. He wrote The Healing Hands. He wrote 90 Minutes in Heaven.
Okay.
His stuff never worked very good.
Mhm.
And so he said, I went to one of his intensive classes. I flew to California. I went to one of his intensive classes. And he asked me to write 5 pages of a story. So I did.
Mhm.
So the first thing he says to me, he says, Bill, you write wonderful sentences. And some of them I actually can understand. That began my intensive study.
Mhm.
Cecil Murphy took me from being a real novice to understanding all the mistakes that people went through. We talked about show, don't tell. We talked about resist the urge to explain. We talked about all of the various things that gives you the basics.
Right.
And then I was very lucky to meet with William Bernhardt. William Bernhardt is a Tulsa lawyer. He now lives in near Oklahoma City.
Mhm.
He's written over 30 novels. He does intensive study. I went through 3 intensive courses with him,
Mhm.
beginners, intermediate, and advanced. And at the end of that time, he said to me, now understand, Bill, and by the way, I was ready to quit the second day that I was in the first course. But we got through it all. He said, Bill, now understand, you will not be accepted until the literary world tells you are. I said, well, Bill, I went through all of this. He said, yes, but now you have to start entering your work.
Right.
Send your work out.
Right.
Enter everything, contests, anything that you can
Right.
do. And that's what got us going.
Okay.
I want to say something about critique partners too, and the development of stories through them. My critique partners are Nikki Hanna and John Biggs.
Mhm.
Nikki Hanna, I don't know if you know Nikki, but if you heard the Rex mention Dairy Hollow Writers Conference in
Yes.
Eureka Springs.
Yes, he did tell me about that.
Nikki goes to that. She wrote a book that I edited for her that was called Near Sex Experience, and it's a fun book.
Mhm.
And John Biggs wrote one called Owl Dreams that I edited for her as well.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you that your critique partners will be your best friends.
Mhm.
They will tell you when things are wrong. They will underline everything for you. And I do the same,
Mhm.
so that we can make each other better. And we
Right.
never stop learning.
Right. Right. Maybe would you suggest you have two? Do you feel like that's
Well,
a healthy number, or would you suggest more, or?
people that you relate to and that you respect. I edit for almost all the night writers that are interested. Most of the basic published ones will send me their work,
Mhm,
and I will edit them before they send them out.
mhm.
Sometimes they'll have to rewrite some things, but I go through a very, very stringent editing process. Have you ever heard of Grammarly?
Oh, yes.
Do you use it?
Oh, yes.
Well, I use it. Don't rely on it totally, but it's good to catch everything when you initially go through.
Yes.
And then when you're looking at someone else's work, I go through all of the things that I would ask myself.
Mhm.
I look for echoing. I look for verb choices. I go
Yes.
back and look at characters. I look for quirks.
Mhm.
Every character should have a quirk.
Did you just say the word quirks?
I did.
Okay, my students are going to catch that because I talked about quirks earlier in the semester and I had some that were like, oh, I don't like that word. Characters need quirks. So what do we
Just
mean by that?
little things that that show them off as who they are.
As human.
Uh, yeah, even bad guys can have quirks.
Yes,
The,
I think they should.
and the quirk sometimes is the key to make you kind of like the bad guy, because he
Yes,
can't be totally bad,
right.
but you have to give him something.
Yes.
And so I look for those things. Word choices, um, character. You'd be surprised that even published authors will start out with the name of a person, and halfway through the book they change the name. It was Briggs, but now it's Brigton. Well,
Right,
let's make up our minds here.
right, right. Yeah, you
And
just
after I've
sense
gone
that that name
through,
isn't working and it's, you have to change it.
yeah,
Mhm,
sometimes the tense, I will even go back. I've done it with my own novel and changed. I had written the whole thing,
mhm.
and then I went through it and decided that the main character needed to be in first person.
Nice.
Everybody else could be in third person.
Mhm,
That's tough to do. I don't suggest you start doing that early on. It's
right.
tough to do, but it works. It brings that main character, first person,
Mhm.
comes up close and personal.
Yes.
And when you're up close and personal, that's a real benefit.
Yes.
That person jumps off the page.
Yes. Do you try to stay in present tense or do you write in past tense, or how do you make that decision?
Well, like I said, sometimes I've had to change it.
Right.
I really like putting my protagonist in first person.
Mhm,
The others can think in third person, that's okay. But the protagonist, I use first person
mhm.
because I want people, generally in dark thrillers, this protagonist is going through very difficult situations.
Yes.
The book Busted that I wrote, I was at a lexicon conference down in Denton, Texas, and a lady came up to me and she was half in tears and she said, "Did you wrote Busted?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "That's me. She's me.
Oh, wow.
And I thank you for what you did." I was just, I was just,
Wow.
I couldn't speak for a moment.
Right.
Signed her book, but when you get that kind of reaction from somebody, you know you've touched them.
Yes.
And I don't care if I get paid.
Right.
Like if I touch somebody.
Right.
So,
Right.
if you're doing it for the money, think again. There are other professions that will
Right.
make you more.
Right. Right. This is not a get rich quick.
It is not. And particularly since 2008.
Mhm.
You have your legacy writers. These legacy writers have written in the 80s, in the 90s. You know all of them.
Mhm.
You know their names: John Gresham, Tom Clancy, Harlan Coben,
Right.
Michael. Now my mind.
Frightened.
You can just name.
Yeah.
You can just name all those. But what happened in 2008?
I don't know.
Kindle came out with their first Kindle.
Oh.
Amazon bought Audible. Amazon became an Amazon.
Mhm.
And now the internet was flooded, or
Right.
with ebooks, 90% of them not very good.
Right.
And the world changed,
Mhm.
absolutely changed. Do you know if you go to a major, the big five, they do no editing for you.
Mhm.
They give you no publicity.
Really.
They'll publish if they like it,
Mhm.
but it's rare that you will get published by them.
Okay.
And the last of the big five is now being purchased by a foreign company. So you're going to have all of them foreign owned.
Wow.
So, and there's horror stories. There was a lady that we met that paid $16,000 to get a book published through a major company. They had exclusive rights to it. They did nothing with it. She has the book at her house, sitting on a nice table in a nice hardback, and nothing happens.
Wow.
And she could have come to me or to any really, good self-publisher, gotten that book published for probably $600.
Wow. Yeah. Get some good editing. Some good editing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big world out there. And there's a lot to know about publishing. I feel like 16 weeks isn't near enough to really fully prepare the novel writing students for the world that's out there in writing. I had 2 years in my writing program, getting my master's degree, and I still, after 2 years of intensive classes, it was still so much to learn and still so much to know. And I'm continuing to learn things about the publishing world, and to be able to just give them some insight that's going to point them in a right direction. It feels like a mountain kind of task for me.
Let me talk about that.
Okay, please.
First of all, I go to conferences.
Mhm.
When I was under Bill Bernhardt, I would go to a conference and I would become a shepherd.
Mhm.
A shepherd is somebody that grabs a author or a critic or someone and takes them around. I got a chance to meet David Morrell.
Okay.
David Morrell is the author and of the Rambo series,
Oh.
and he had met Sylvester Stallone and all. and David, you find that these big name people, they're just like you or me.
Right.
They're not anybody to be afraid of.
Right.
I have met so many people. Dennis Palumbo, he's the psychiatrist to the stars in California. So many individuals that I know that I can pick up the phone and I can talk with them.
Mhm.
You have to go to these places and you have to get involved.
Mhm.
You meet the people, you talk shop with them.
Right.
I read a book, and I would suggest this book to you and to your students,
Okay.
whether they're writing fantasy or they're writing whatever they're writing. Read this book. It's called Murder is a Fine Art.
Okay.
And David Morrell wrote this book.
Okay.
And it puts you on the streets of London in 1854, and you know that you are there.
Mhm.
You know it through the people,
Mhm.
not necessarily the scene. Although
Nice.
the scene and the people blend together. They become, but you know the tensions. You can see that an Irish cop isn't as well respected as a British cop. So he always wears his hat because he doesn't want to show his red hair.
Oh, that's interesting.
And David, I was reading his book and I called him
Mhm.
and I said, you keep saying father. Now, in 1854, wouldn't you say papa?
Mhm.
And David said, read the back. You haven't finished yet, Bill. Go read the back. So I read the back, and there's an explanation in there in the back of the book that says, I decided to use father
Mhm.
instead of papa because it was difficult for people to reading in this time to keep saying papa. So I used father. He said, now I've had several people talk to me about that. And if I do a rewrite, I may change it. Now, this is the kind of thing that you get into when you do this. You have to put yourself out there.
Right.
Join them.
Mhm.
Find people that like you and you like them. Everything is marketing. And if you're
Right.
serious, you need to know about it.
Right. It is marketing. I remember when I first had my novels out, there was so much work involved,
Mhm.
so much work. And a lot of it did fall on my own shoulders. It wasn't just the publisher. It was something that I had to do if I wanted to get the word out.
I speak at book clubs,
Mhm.
at conferences, and I generally speak for free,
Mhm.
unless there's some real expense, getting there.
Mhm.
But I have an opportunity to sell my books. And then as I'm selling my books, I have an opportunity to network with people
Yes.
to continue the work. So
Yes.
for me, I'm one of the, let's see, the last I've heard, there were 5% of the non-agented authors,
Mhm.
5% that made enough money to make $100,000 a year. 5%. And then there were like 25% that made enough money to recoup all the expenses that they had to do
Mhm.
to get everything done.
Mhm.
And at least I'm in that section. I recoup my expenses, I make a little money, but I'm not in it for the money.
Right.
And what I'm in it for is to produce the absolute best work that I can produce
Right. It's
to
your art.
influence the lives of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's art.
Now,
It's our expression. It's the way that we create, I mean, you have something inside of you that's just burning that you need to create. You have to do it. You absolutely have to do it.
I heard a radio broadcast, and the commentator said, buffalo are leaving Yellowstone. I thought about that. Why would buffalo leave Yellowstone?
Mm-hmm.
So I read further into the article, and I realized that there's a volcano under Yellowstone National
Yes.
Park. Well, the book Yellowstone was the result of that.
Oh, wow.
Now, it is now called Survival Camp 12, and I'll tell you why in a minute.
Okay.
But for me, now this isn't the difference between pantsers and plotters.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I talked to geologists.
Uh-huh.
I researched the past 400,000 years of Yellowstone. How often did it explode? Where did the lava flow go? What's covered now, and what would happen if the air patterns? I know you're going to think, what is this guy doing? Well, I am laying the groundwork for writing a very difficult, dark thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And the main antagonist is nature.
Right.
And then it becomes people
Mm-hmm.
affected by nature.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine if that volcano exploded, 23 states would no longer exist, and the rest of the country would be in turmoil,
Yes.
starvation,
Yes.
all of this. And
Yes.
then people turn on people. So that becomes the crux to the story. And I have to be right with this. If anybody, and there's a lot of preppers out there that they'll pick up the book and say, okay, I'm going to find out if this is right or not.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
and so you have to be right in your facts.
Right.
And I
Wow.
said, so I planned that whole book out. I had it all outlined, start to finish, before I ever put my pen, my fingers to used to be pen to paper. It's not that anymore.
No,
My
it's not.
fingers to the keys,
Right.
And it was an amazing story to write. It was picked up right away by Ogma Publishing, Ogma Creative. But then we got hit with the COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and it's great for self-published authors. COVID was, but not for publishers.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately there were paper shortages, there were deadline shortages. There were you couldn't even get a hold of people to do a variety of things. So Ogma had made some suggestions for me to change the title, was one of them. Change it to Survival Camp 12 because, one of my favorite actors happens to be in a TV show called Yellowstone.
Yes.
And you have competition. You don't
Correct.
know which one you're going with. So we changed it to Survival Camp 12. And I love female protagonists. You will always find in my books that the female protagonist is the key.
Mm-hmm.
And I love writing female protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked a Creek Indian woman from Muskogee, and she is my heroine
Okay.
in this story.
Wow.
I won't tell you
I'm
much.
excited. I love telling students about the Yellowstone volcano possibilities because most don't know anything about it, most have never heard of it. Most of them are very young. And so they be in the classroom and I'll be like, we have a super volcano in this country. And they'll be like, what?
Yeah, well, it was a toss-up. Super volcano, the New Madrid Fault, San Francisco going into the ocean.
Right. Right.
One of those, but I chose the volcano.
I love it. I'm glad you did. I'm going to read that because that kind of
Survival Camp
apocalyptic.
12. Now I have to warn you, you will experience terror because it's located in Tulsa and what happens here. And so you'll read the streets that you drive down and you'll and you'll feel the tension.
I'm excited. That sounds fantastic. My students, my Comp 1 class is completely centered around the writing of Stephen King. Most of them don't have any insight, and I'm just not one who is going to force like old writing on them or topics that they're not interested in. And so first day of class, I'm like, all right, so everybody needs to buy Night Shift by Stephen King. And they're all like, like, what are we doing? And so they kind of get this sense that, wow, there's something not right in her head. Because I love dark stories. I love because they really dig into humanity and who we really authentically are.
Yes. Yes. And, it's hard to look deep into the soul of individuals. It's scary to look deep into the soul of individuals.
Yes.
Because there is always a hurt. I have never looked into the eyes of a person who has not been hurt.
Correct.
And even in the Christian side of my life,
yes,
I'm very, very aware of that.
Yes.
That hurting people need love and they need affirmation.
Yes.
And that's something that you can get from these books, and that's where you need to go with them. There are some writers that do not go with them, and they're more neo-noir or neo-noir. The New Black, that's an area that at the end of the book, everybody's depressed.
Yeah. Oh, I'm loving this. You and I, we share faith.
Yeah.
Yes. And I understand that. I want my readers to come away with something to think about and something to ponder, especially in the realm of faith and God's involvement in our lives.
And there's no person that can't change from where they are to be somewhere else.
Correct.
We all have that possibility within us.
Yes. I am taking notes like crazy. I was just thinking maybe I should just watch this later and take my notes then, but
now I have to side with something here. It involves editing, so this will be okay. I just finished editing a contest for the sensual, erotic women's authors.
Nice.
And they asked me to do it, and I said, okay, I will.
Right.
Well, and what I do, well, it doesn't matter the genre.
Right.
What you look at is the craft.
Yes.
Because really everything is the same. The structure is from Homer to Gresham.
Mhm.
The structure of our writing is the same.
Yes.
It doesn't change whether you're doing film writing or movies or books or whatever. It starts with an inciting incident. It goes through 3 acts, and in the end, when everything is almost totally lost, something happens.
Right.
J.R.R. Tolkien got that very right in the 3 books he wrote for The Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
You've got Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3.
Mhm.
And you've got your unsuspecting hero
Yes.
who gets into this task that just,
Impossible task.
and it's a huge world.
Yes.
That's what you're really looking for. You're looking, if you're writing fantasy or whatever world you're in, you create that world, make it bigger, make it big.
Go
Make the
bold.
impact big.
Make it big. Yes.
Yes, the bigger it is, the better it is.
I like that. I was just talking with the novel writing class yesterday. We did a Zoom call and I was telling him, be bold with your writing. Don't hesitate, write it.
Yep.
Don't hold back. Those things that were like, oh, what will they think if I say that? Stop saying that to yourself. Just do it. Just do it. Go for it. There's always time to edit it later. If it needs it, go for it.
Yep. Yeah, you're going to go back and edit it anyway.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you need to find people who really understand the craft. They don't have to write the same thing you write.
Right.
And we have in the Night Writers some very, very talented people that do that. There's just so many just good, solid writers that are willing to give their time.
Mhm.
That's why I think it's so important to belong to a writers organization and to go to the conferences, to meet the people,
Yes.
develop a camaraderie of people, and you'll know which ones fit with you. Some people fit with you, some people don't.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
But you'll develop a group
Mhm.
that when you have a problem, you can pick up the phone or send a text or do something, and you'll hear back in a minute.
That's correct.
Now, I think young people today, people from your class, they're familiar with texting and a variety of other things, and they're always on their computers or their whatevers.
Mhm.
So I think, they might be very good at that.
Mhm.
You don't have to be face to face to build a relationship.
Right. Some of them are, it is a strictly online class. Like we've done 2 Zoom calls because it's not a requirement of a class to meet online, to meet face to face. I wish that it were, because I feel like it would be much more beneficial for the students if we were in a more face to face environment. But they have, because I make it a very discussion thread oriented course. And so they're forced to interact with each other through the discussion thread, because they have to comment on so many other students' work in order for their discussion thread to submit to me for even grading. So I'm forcing them to interact with one another. And some of them are forming relationships. And I'm like, do that, and stay together once you finish this class. Rely on each other, need each other, help each other grow. You have to have that.
There's a meeting in September
Mhm.
that Bill Bernhardt puts on in conjunction, I think, with Rose State University.
Mhm.
And that would be a good meeting for them to go to.
Do you know what it's called?
Well, it's you'd have to go to William Bernhardt's website,
Okay.
but he and his wife, she did my first audiobook, by the way.
Mhm.
Bill Bernhardt's wife did.
Oh,
And she was just absolutely amazing. I mean, there was Russian speaking and everything else that had to be done on that. And she researched it out. And she yelled at me though. She said, "Why do you put so much in Russian?"
That's funny. Because it did.
Because I did. Yeah.
I have a student right now who is writing a Scottish character. And I read a snippet of it and I was like, yes, you nailed it. That's so good. Mhm.
Yeah.
It's very exciting, but I don't know if I could read it though.
So whatever the course is called, they will be bringing in people who are well versed. There'll be agents there. There'll be famous authors there.
Okay.
There'll be people that are going to be teaching courses, and it's not that expensive.
Okay.
So that's something that you might do.
Okay.
I would use poets and writers. Do you know that website?
I do know Poets and Writers.
Poets
Yes.
and writers will publish a list of all of the contests that are going on,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can enter them. See, I do that just for fun. I enter contests that are 11,000 entries
Mm-hmm.
from all over the world.
Wow.
Ink and Insights is one. New York at Midnight. Great place to test your skills.
Right.
Because you'll get feedback from 4 different judges, and you'll also build a reputation if you win something. You know, I placed second in armchair interviews. Over 11,000 people entered in that.
Right.
So you send your work. You pay like the $25 fee, and you get great results. And if you win something, great. So I placed 7th in the Writer's Digest contest out of 11,000 people.
Wow.
But I didn't win anything. Now the top guy, the one that won the contest, was John Biggs, my critique partner.
Oh, how fantastic.
Yeah, well, it wasn't to me. I threw apples at him the next time I saw him. But it's when you enter your work, this is what Bill Bernhardt meant when he said, when the literary world tells you you're good, then you're good.
That's fantastic. And I wrote that down. And that was Bill Bernhardt that said that.
He said that to me, yeah.
Okay.
Bill's he's a one-on-one, take no prisoners guy, but he's very, very, very good with you. He teaches everything, shows examples, very knowledgeable, and he's right here in Oklahoma, so
wonderful.
it's not a far reach.
This is fantastic. I'm going to look that information up. And when I post this conversation that we're having right now, when I post this to YouTube and for my students on their Blackboard course shell, I'm going to put that information on there.
Yeah. He publishes something called Red Sneaker Writers.
Okay.
Because he likes to wear red sneakers.
That's funny. That's a quirk.
There you go. You're right. It's quirky.
Quirks are important. That's like, I always wear cowboy boots. Always, always. I have a couple pairs of sandals, but.
I just got my wife into cowboy boots.
Oh, they're so comfortable.
Yeah, that's what she says now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a pair of Dan Post boots that are really nice.
Dan Post are my favorite.
Yeah.
The pair I'm wearing right now, I would like totally here. I've had these
Ah, there you go.
for 5 years, and that I've had them resold. I wear them all the time. They're a constant companion. But I have, I think, like 15 pairs of boots right now. Works.
Quirks, yes.
They work. They absolutely work. You've got to have, everybody has them if we're honest about who we are.
Well, and and just as you're reading, you have to read people. I have read every Bosch story, every Hieronymus Bosch.
Okay, I've seen the series. Have you seen the series?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, it was wonderful. I didn't realize there were books. Maybe I did, but I didn't.
There's 27 of them.
Well, they need to make more shows.
Well, they're going to. They're going to, but it's going to be a little bit different. Jack Reacher, I've read every one of those books.
Yes.
I've read all the Myron Bolitar books from Harlan Coben.
Okay.
And you learn from them. And sometimes you learn bad things. For instance, let's say, Steve Larson, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Have you ever read it?
No.
Okay. He's a Swedish guy. So maybe this was a Swedish kind of quirk. But he spends the first 100 pages in a talk about a lawsuit that involves, he in a lawsuit with that involves him before he gets to the girl with the dragon tattoo. I was ready to put the book down. I was thinking, why is this such a good book?
Right.
We have a story, a thing he's trying to solve. It's about pictures and they're being missing and all, but what we really get is when the girl with the dragon tattoo shows up, the whole story changes. The guy that starts the book, Bjorklund, becomes the minor character. And the main character is the girl, Elizabeth Salander. He didn't need to write the first 100 pages.
Oh my
He
God.
could have started right there and written it. And I, once she comes in, she's the story. And she's the story through the whole trilogy and even the others that he never lived to fulfill. And so I learned, don't wait 100 pages to bring in your best character. Do it right away.
Right. Maybe it was a Swedish thing.
It might have been. It might have been. Swedish politics did not interest me.
Right. That seems an excessively long time to have to wait for.
Well, they kept telling me it's a great book, and I kept reading it thinking, this is dull. I can fall asleep here.
I can't do a book if it's boring to me.
No.
I can't.
You'll read 5 pages and you know whether you want to or not.
It's got to have me turning pages, as quick as I'm into it. I'm a read an entire novel in 5 hours kind of gal. Like once I get started, I'm in. And
I know I'm jumping around here, but another thing that your students need to learn is how to do a pitch, how to do an elevator pitch, how to talk to people with a pitch. And okay, let me see. I have a book called The Fifth Step. All right, the fifth step is the fifth step in the Alcohol Anonymous AA.
yes.
It's admit to yourself, to your higher power, yourself and another individual, the exact nature of your wrongs.
Yes.
That's the title of the book.
Nice.
And it's about a preacher who has a icon pop up on his computer from a porn star. he clicks on it. And it destroys his ministry and almost destroys his marriage. And so that's my pitch. I say, here's my pitch. A minister clicks on an icon. It's from a porn star, and it destroys his ministry and almost destroys his marriage. Want to read it?
Right. Oh my, yes. Yes, I do.
So that's the kind of pitches people need to learn. They asked Hemingway once, can you give us a pitch for a book in 5 words? And he said, pink baby shoes, never worn.
Right. Right. Right.
Boom.
Right.
And we have to start thinking like that because everything is marketing.
Yes, it is. I'm writing so fast. Can you pitch a book in 5 words? To be able to do exactly what you did there with the 5th step, that was so succinct. And I'm immediately excited. Like, I want to read that. That was brilliant. That was amazing. I love that very much. It's got my mind turning already about my own work.
Well, we write what, that's another thing we're going to say. We write what we own, what we know.
Yes.
Forget that. Forget that. You can know anything you really want to know.
It's true.
You've got the internet, you've got Google.
That's
Earth,
right.
You've got all of this. I go into Google Earth and came down on this book, The 5th Step. I had to go into Google Earth and come and pinpoint the locations of different mountains and their weather patterns. And I could come right down and see this whole thing right there. Right. So you can learn today what you're excited about to know. And I would say this too, passion is the most important thing that we have. I have never seen nothing accomplished without passion.
That's right. That's right.
And if you have a passion for writing, and obviously if your students are taking your class and going into this, they have a passion for writing.
Yes.
Then take that passion and work it.
Work it. Yes. And don't stop. Don't stop. You have to just do.
You ready to go write something now?
Yeah. I have my current manuscript open on the computer. I was working on it right before we got started. But it's always up here.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I have never had writer's block.
Really?
Never.
And why is that?
I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. Mm-hmm. But I can take a couple of ideas. I can look at something and it intrigues me, mm-hmm. and all of a sudden my mind just gets, going through all the things that I could possibly generate with that. Mm-hmm. Some of them I throw away, think, but the ones I get really excited about, then I will write. I used to put out two books a year, mm-hmm. but now I'm working on a project that's going to take me 3 years, mm-hmm. and I figure it'll be my last hurrah anyway. So,
Don't know that.
Unless I lived in 100, I could.
Well, right, you totally could. Absolutely. Especially if you've got something that you're doing that's driving you, that you're passionate about. It gives you
this one is a real driver. I am writing a book on the book of Revelation.
Okay, and what about Revelation?
The whole book.
The whole book.
From the start to the end, and all the intricacies. I've already been working on it 6 months and I'm only just past chapter 3. So
Right. Well, you have the 7 churches that you have to address.
yeah, did those and now I'm in the call up to heaven. And I figured it out. It's going to take me 3 years to do it.
Yeah.
And I have, the worst part is going to be footnoting it. See, any project you do, you have to understand the end product where you can get in trouble or not get in trouble. I don't worry about copyrights. I copyright my own stuff. Amazon puts the ESBN numbers on. I don't have to worry about all that. But in referencing, when you're writing nonfiction, you really have to know your stuff, because you have to get, the Bibles will have copyrights.
Yes.
So if you're quoting out of an ESV Bible, you have to have all of those copyrights from Crossway or whoever publishes that, and your book cannot be more than 20% or 23% or something scripture. The rest of it has to be regular dialogue, or they'll say you're just copying their Bible.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's things that you have problems with all around you. So you have to research them when you're doing something new.
And you need to know about that. You absolutely need to know about this. See, that's the thing that I hadn't even thought to mention in this course. And I had an entire class, an entire semester on talking about copywriting and making sure that you're doing all of those things appropriate when it comes to getting the final stages before publishing. And
oh yeah,
so much involved.
Yeah, I do my copyrights and they're fine. I'm really not worried about people trying to steal my work.
I want to know what you're going to do with chapter 19 of Revelation, where we actually come to the rider on the white horse.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Oh. Is it a fictionalized account of the scripture? Are you is it nonfiction? Is it fiction?
Well, it's nonfiction. And it basically deals with well, for instance, the 12 churches, what was going on in each of those churches that would cause the writer to write what he wrote. What was the topography? Where was the church located? Many of the words used are words that would be related to people back in the year, 90 AD.
Yes.
As opposed to something that was being that would be there today. We wouldn't we wouldn't recognize it. So you go into what the city looked like, what the he talks in one city about the seat of Satan. Well, there's a actual throne of Zeus sitting on top of a huge mountain in that city.
Right.
So you have to do all that research to find out just what everything is.
Right.
And then you have to be able in your writing to quote the sources of each discovery that you have. So if I use a particular writer or a particular video, there's some videos on the 7 cities. If I have to publish that, then I would have to quote them appropriately in that section, that I use their material.
Right.
to
And
do
do
that.
you find using a footnote is best as far as doing citations? Because I know, like in my comp classes, we're all about MLA format. But
Yeah.
what would you say would be the correct, in your experience, means of citing materials in text for fiction and nonfiction books?
Fiction books, you don't really get too much of that.
Mhm.
Nonfiction books, you get a lot. And I'm still struggling with that in the ones that I have.
Mhm.
I put and then too, you have problems trying to connect these, because when you're publishing an ebook, you have to be able, if they go on line, if they can connect with it, you have to be able to connect them so that they can click on your note and go to the reference,
Mhm.
and then click on the reference and go back to the section of the book. That is a monumental task only in itself.
Oh my goodness. I can imagine that would be.
It's difficult.
Mhm.
I put a reference in the back, and I also put, I forget what I called it, but I actually have references, and then I have a subsection in mine, and then I had to connect them all together and be sure that each one goes back to the reference in the book.
Holy,
Boy,
that is a big, I mean, I said that, did I? That is a big project. I'm excited for you to be doing that.
uh,
That is
yeah,
an undertaking.
but it, again, it's time consuming, and it's taxing. It just goes back to the fact that writing is not easy. Writing is
Correct.
hard.
Correct.
That's why we as writers need to be gentle friends with our peers
Yes.
and with those that are learning.
Yes.
If you have an idea and you've put a pencil to a paper, you're a writer, you're an author. If you want to write just a memoir so your kids have something,
Mhm.
you're a writer, you're an author,
Right.
and I'll help you.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
That's so exciting. It really is. It's such a beautiful world, the writing world. And it is difficult. And it is something I told the students, don't be a lone ranger.
Now, I do have a book called The Literary Murders. That one, I actually murder agents.
Oh.
An agent ticked me off once. And so I said to myself, what
That's
else would
funny.
I speak to? I said, I'm gonna murder this guy. So I murdered him on paper. And then I continued to murder him on paper, murder others. And then I got a writing partner that came in and decided to get in on the act.
Mhm.
Only he was very diabolical.
Oh.
And so he started murdering people too, and coming in behind me as I was murdering them.
Oh no.
See that the job was done properly, and then went out and murdered somebody on his own and messed up the whole thing.
Messed up the whole thing.
Yeah, we ended up going to prison.
Oh.
But that's another story.
Oh my. That could be a story in and of itself.
You'd have to read the book.
Oh my goodness.
Everybody in the book is somebody I know.
Oh my gosh.
And
love
I've
that.
had writers ask me, am I in that book? And I said, no, you're not.
No,
Or yes, you are.
no, mm-mm. That's the literary murders.
Yes.
I'm making a note. You have this
Writing can be
thing
fun.
down.
You know. You can have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so funny because I just finished up a Comp 1 class right before our conversation here. And we were watching the 1993 Charlie Rose interview of Stephen King. And in there, Stephen King's talking about his editor. And he's like, at this point in the manuscript, I could kill him. So that totally made me like, I was like, oh, that's funny. Because when they are editing your work and they are critiquing your work, there are moments where you're like, really? That's super funny.
How much time do we have left?
I mean, we are at an hour and 10 minutes, so we can stop whenever.
Okay, I just want to close with this one thing.
Okay.
I published an anthology for the night writers. It was called A River of Stories.
Yes.
Every story in it was edited by a professional. There were many first-time writers that had just joined our club that submitted. So we were able to go through the process with them, to show them what they had to do, to revise their work, to conform with what we were doing. And it was a wonderful experience for people.
Right.
Because they got a chance at the end, many of them, to say, hey, I'm a published author. I'm in this anthology.
Correct.
And my work is in that anthology.
I want to be in the next one. I'm like, I want to do this.
I think it costs $35 to join the Tulsa Night Writers.
I have my application.
All right.
I absolutely do. I printed it offline and I was like, yes. Now that I've talked to several of you in the interviews, I'm like, I want to go and hang out. Like, oh, such a wealth of information you all are. And
well, and we are glad to share it.
Yes.
We're glad to share it.
And I have, that is a very true statement. Everybody has been so warm and welcoming and just giving an abundance of information. And I'm beyond grateful, Bill, beyond grateful for this. And I know this is going to benefit my students. I know that I have so many notes on my desk in front of me. We talked about so many things that I know that they're going to be grateful to hear and that will encourage them. And I very much appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this for us.
Well, you know how to get a hold of me.
Yes, sir.
And you can get a hold of me anytime.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And I will take your call.
Absolutely, I will. I'm so excited to know you. This is fantastic. So I will, once we close out here, it'll be a little while, but I will get this saved to my computer. And then I will get it uploaded to not only their course shell, but I will also upload it to YouTube and I'll let you know when it's ready.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to talk with you today. Same
here. It's great to meet people who love the craft.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you, Bill.
Uh-huh.
We'll see you. Bye.